one of us. Amen? He's an Adventist. You know, when you talk about internationally renowned people, we think they're the likes of the creme de la creme. They're not meant to be black. They're not meant to be Nigerians. They're not meant to be Adventists. But we have all of this in the sequence. And yet, it's sitting amongst us like every one of us. I'm introducing to you a man of great humility, Dr. Chidi, a leading lifestyle doctor, trained in surgery, general practice, and lifestyle medicine in Cambridge, UCL, and Johns Hopkins University in the United States. He's a founding director of European Society of Lifestyle Medicine, now called the ELMO. He has lived and worked over 20 years and experience in national and international health wellness speaking events in TEDs, talking on reversing diseases, as well as lecturing in California, Columbia, Johns Hopkins, and Cambridge universities. He has also spoken and chaired conferences at Loma Linda, Andrews University, and La Sierra. He has advised the current UK government, opposition party on COVID-19, its effects on different ethnic groups. He's working with general practice groups in London to reverse diabetes in their patients. He continues to advise Nigerian federal government on so many other health issues. This man, with great humility, has met with our own, finance minister in Nigeria several times, and has been called for several international exposures to give health advice. Yet, he's right in our midst today. He is a medical doctor, a medical expert, a contributor to Europe's most popular health magazine, Top Santé, and contributes to the Daily Express, the Daily Mail, the Times, the Telegraph, the Mirror, Elle, Men's Health, and many more. He's a TV regular medical expert on ITV's Good Morning Britain, BBC TV health shows such as Food, Truth or Scare, regular news reviewer on Sky, Newspaper Review, and BBC Radio London Newspaper Review with Vanessa Feltz. He is a director and founder of Lifestyle Medicine Clinic in Harley Street, founded by a successful and award-winning health restaurant, Plan in Surrey. In 2016, he received a national award on leadership for his work in reversing diseases. He serves as an ambassador for the Organization of Plant-Based Health Professionals UK. He features in upcoming Netflix film, The End of Medicine, as the health of wellness expert in 2021. Author on upcoming Restoring Health, Reversing Diseases series of books in 2021. He is passionate. He has a passion to reverse, improve, and prevent many chronic illnesses, including heart diseases, arthritis, diabetes, and many more. He's a unique programmer, and he does life colors. The first time I met this man was in Holloway Church. How many years ago? 17 years ago. He came to talk about life colors. It was an experience. In the pandemic, he continues to do infrequent shifts, even in the emergency department. I'm here to introduce today the one and only Adventist, renowned, international, black, Nigerian, Igbo, Dr. Chidi Uwomba, who is here today with his wife, Sister Pamela. Please come up as he blesses us with How to Heal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You don't want this one? Yes, thank you. Well, it's a privilege to be here. My very first time. Thank you so much for that introduction and actually for the invitation. It's nice to be amongst our people. No? Yes. Yes. Okay. It's nice to be amongst our people. It's wonderful. And I just must say that already I'm having a great experience on my Sabbath. Isn't it interesting that even the Sabbath school's talking about healing? And I was interested to see how the discussion went wonderful. And then we've had the fabulous song service. You know, it's a rare thing when you see me raising my hand in the church, but you just got me today. Fantastic, wonderful. And hearing all of our medical experts, I think we've covered the entire body already today. Fantastic, you know, hearing all the different illnesses and how we can treat them and what we need to do. I think you have a wealth of talent in this church. It's wonderful. I am just going to add a little bit to what has been done already. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can prevent some of these diseases and how we can reverse them. Okay. So yeah, and we've entitled it How to Beat Disease. Yes, B with an eat, disease. Eating has a lot to do with it, obviously. So if we carry on, you can see that my life colours is very important to me. You see, I always go back to when I was in medical school, first day of medical school. And the dean interviews every medical student. And the dean said to me, maybe I should take the other one. Thank you. And the dean said to me, why do you want to be a doctor? And I said, well, because I want to cure people. And the dean looked over his glasses at me and said, yeah, we don't cure people. We treat people. And that's kind of the experience, right? As doctors, we keep treating you with medicine and surgery for the rest of your life. We don't seek to cure, or we're not taught how to cure. Well, the wonderful thing is that God has given us information and wisdom to help people cure. I'm not saying I can put my hands on you and cure you, but He has given us information to help cure this beautiful body that we have. And that's why I came up with life colours to help people reverse all of these diseases. Keep going, keep going. Keep going. Now, I know everybody's heard of COVID-19. Everybody has heard of COVID-19. That hit us. Well, it hit us, but I think the response to it hit us even worse. Now, what I remember is when COVID-19 was out, in the very early days, we were getting information that the people that were suffering worse with COVID-19 are people who had underlying disease. You need to keep going with the slides, okay? Who had underlying disease. Diabetes, heart disease, cancer, autoimmune disease. Those were the people that were suffering the worst. And by the way, also, black people living in the West were suffering worst as well. You remember that? Okay, and we need to find out why that was. Now, what we were finding is that if people had these keep going. If people had these diseases, I figure that they are very much like having a bear stalking them in a distance, having a disease. Nobody wants to have the disease. Nobody wants to have a bear stalking them in the distance. But it's far away, so we don't worry about it. I've got diabetes, I take my medicine, I don't worry about it. But what happened with COVID-19 is that it's like having that bear that was in the distance now on our shoulder. Now is about to destroy us. That diabetes that you thought you could live with, COVID-19 comes along and it wipes you out. High blood pressure wipes you out. You thought you could live with it. I'm okay taking my pills. That's what people say to me. You know what? I don't mind. I'll just carry on with my life. But when an insult or a stressor comes along, the body can't cope. And that's what happened with COVID-19. Keep going. And that's why we have this thing called life colours. So what I would like to talk to you about is just really how we can help to reverse and prevent some diseases. These life colours, there's 9 of them. I'm going to give you one tip to help you with each one, because I can't do everything this morning, if that's all right. So why don't we start with the heart, okay? Start with heart disease. Start with heart disease, okay? So, what one thing can we do, or can I tell you, to help prevent or reverse heart disease? Well, the biggest thing you can do is have a healthy plant-based diet. Healthy plant-based diet. I'm looking at the Nigerians in front of me. You're telling me about your stews and your soups with all kinds of things involved in those stews. I'm saying that a healthy plant-based diet is the thing that can help reverse up to more than 40% of heart disease, up to 80%. In fact, this was the first thing that I realized when I was a medical student. I looked into some research. And when we're taught about heart disease, and for a long time I used to help doing heart bypasses, opening up people's arteries. Well, the research told us that if you go onto a healthy plant-based diet, you can actually open up those arteries that were clogged. Now, today, you go to medical school, you're still not going to see that. They're not teaching us that. But better than any surgery, better than any drug, is getting onto a healthy plant-based lifestyle. It will naturally open up those arteries for you. So that's number one. Number two, how about pressure, blood pressure? Does anybody know anybody with high blood pressure? Everybody knows somebody with high blood pressure. What one thing, and I mean it, one thing can I give you to help reverse or prevent high blood pressure? Well, it's similar to what we were talking about. Eat more greens. Eat more greens. The thing that makes plants green is what? Chlorophyll. Chlorophyll. When we digest that and it goes into our arteries, it stimulates our arteries to release a chemical. That's called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide opens up the arteries, and as the arteries open up, the blood pressure goes down, just naturally, just taking those greens. And by the way, nitric oxide is the active ingredient in Viagra. Everything goes quiet when I say that. Is he allowed to say that on the Sabbath? Yes, it's the natural ingredient in Viagra. It opens up arteries to have its effect. And when people say to me, Dr. Chidi, yes, I want to lower my blood pressure, but don't tell me about rabbit food. Rabbits don't need Viagra. Yes, I'll leave that there. I'll leave that there. Number three, what about cancer? When I was at medical school, cancer was pretty much the most feared illness that we can get. What can we do to lower the risk of cancer? Well, one of the first things we could do is spice up our life. Who likes spices? Nobody likes spices. Okay. Some people like spices. So spices not only are good for flavor, they're good to help prevent and treat cancer. These 4 spices I've got up, pretty much all spices are good for us. But these 4 that we've got up, turmeric. Turmeric is probably the most powerful antioxidant that we have. You add that with black pepper, its effect goes even higher. Ginger, similar. Cardamom at the bottom, that helps us recruit white blood cells. The white blood cells that go around, seek out, and destroy cancer. Cinnamon lowers our blood sugar. Do you know cancer loves sugar? It consumes sugar at about 20 times the rate of normal cells. So if you lower blood sugar with things like cinnamon, it's very hard for cancer to thrive. By the way, cinnamon is also useful for viral illnesses. They realized that the women from Sri Lanka who were harvesting cinnamon never got things like measles and colds or anything like that. Take cinnamon every day, lowers your risk of having any kind of viral illness. What about diabetes? Diabetes. I would say possibly half of the work I do is reversing type 2 diabetes. It's massive. Globally, it's become really an epidemic. What one thing can I give you? That would be, after each meal, go for a walk. After each meal, go for a walk. I'll tell you something. When I was a teenager, I read in The Ministry of Healing, you've heard of that book, The Ministry of Healing, that Ellen White said, after each meal, go for a walk. And being a teenager, I thought I knew better than Ellen White. I said, well, look, if you go for a walk after you've eaten, surely you're going to get indigestion. But actually, what we realize now is even if you have a healthy meal, you break down that meal into its sugars, those sugars will raise your blood sugar, right? How do you lower that blood sugar? Well, as you're walking, you're using the biggest muscles in your body, and they absorb that sugar, keeping your blood sugar levels low. Therefore, your insulin levels stay low. Therefore, you become less insulin resistant, and diabetes can slowly go away. That's one of the tools written for us over 100 years ago and is still relevant today. That's right. Go for a walk immediately after each meal. The next thing, how do we fight off friendly fire? You've heard of friendly fire, right? So friendly fire is when an army shoots its own colleagues by mistake. Friendly fire. And that's a bit like autoimmune diseases, right? We have this beautiful immune system that is designed to seek out and destroy cancer and viruses and everything. But sometimes it goes wrong and it starts to attack us, causing all sorts of problems, as you can see. Rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, thyroid disease, all sorts of problems. So what one piece of advice can I give you to help reverse it or prevent it? Well, I don't know if you remember Bart Simpson. He used to say, don't have a cow, man. Well, that's what I'm saying to you today. Stay away from cow's milk. Cow's milk and all of its derivatives is one of the biggest stimulants for autoimmune disease. And you can see there's a reference to a journal, New England Journal of Medicine, back in 1992. No, go back. The New England Journal of Medicine in 1992 did a study on children who have type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is not like type 2. It is where the pancreas is destroyed in children and they have to be on insulin very early. So they realized that these children with type 1 diabetes had massive loads of antibodies to milk protein. It was that protein that was seeking out and destroying their pancreas. So avoid cow's milk. Leave cow's milk to the calves. And before you ask me about goat's milk, leave that to the kids. Yeah, some of you understand what I'm talking about. Anyway, okay, fair enough. Next, let's move on. Yes, how do we beat this battle of the bulge? Now, some of us are starting to say, well, I don't need to know about this. I'm quite slim anyway. I don't need to hear this. Leave that to other people. No, all of us have this issue. All of us are accumulating fat in parts of our body that we don't want. Some of us look slim, but we're still accumulating some of the most toxic fat in the body. We call that visceral fat. It is worse than the subcutaneous fat that everybody can see. In fact, we call people toffees, thin outside, fat inside. So in order to get rid of that, what one thing would I do? I would say get rid of the white stuff, and I mean get rid of the sugar, refined sugar. We're raised on refined sugar in this country. You go to certain parts, even you go back to Nigeria now, everything's sugar, right? But if you go back into the village or back into the jungle in the darkest parts of Africa, they're not overflowing with sugar. And they're living long and healthy. I know sugar is a difficult thing to kick, but it can be done if we have the will to do it. I don't know if you heard of the Dr. Chidi method. You heard of the Dr. Chidi method? Some of you have. Let me share the Dr. Chidi method with you. You see, I, like many of us, have had a problem with sugar. You may not believe it, but I certainly do. In fact, many times I've been in the past where even my mother has brought a cake to my house. And I say, well, you know my problem with sugar. Why are you bringing a cake to the house? Put it away. Put it in the fridge. I spend all day thinking about the cake. Can't go to sleep thinking about the cake. So I'm as bad as everybody else. But in order to overcome it, one of the ways to do it is to say, look, if that cake is calling your name out, don't say you can't have it. Say you'll have it in half an hour. If you say you can't have it, your body is going to desire that cake even more. You know what it's like. We're like children. You say you can't have something, you want it even more. Instead of doing that, say you'll have it in half an hour and at the same time eat an apple. As you eat that apple, you will release sugar slowly into your bloodstream. No spikes, slowly into your bloodstream. After half an hour, you should have enough sugar in your body to overcome the desire for the cake. Now, some of you are saying, I'll still want the cake. So you just do it again. Maybe at the end of the day, you've eaten 5 apples. That's not bad, right? But truthfully, even if every now and again you fall off the wagon and have that cake, I guarantee you will eat it at a lower frequency than if you didn't try the Dr. Chidi method. And the Dr. Chidi method stands for don't resist it, choose to have it, but delay it. Don't resist, choose to have it, but delay it. That spells Dr. Chidi. You can put that principle into practice in many areas of our lives. You go past the shoe shop, don't resist it, choose to have it, but I'm not looking at the women. I'm not looking at the women. But you know what I'm talking about. Okay, yes, let's not forget dementia. Dementia is now the most feared lifestyle disease. But the good news is that it is a lifestyle disease. It's not random. People think, oh, well, will I get dementia? We've known for a long time, those of you who are medics and nurses, we've known for a long time there are certain types of dementia that you can get. There's one called multi-infarct dementia. You hear about that? Yeah, meaning that you have all these little infarcts in your brain that leads to dementia. Why are you having the infarcts? Blood pressure's up, heart disease is up. So we've known that it's lifestyle related. But we now know that pretty much all of dementia is lifestyle related. They're looking for genes, but people who have the genes for it still don't get it, and people who don't have the genes still get it. The most predictive factor is our lifestyle. So if you're diabetic, hypertensive, you have heart disease, more than anything, if you have lots of stress in the middle of your life and you don't know how to cope with that stress, that's a big predictor of dementia. The good news is there are many things you can do, but the one thing I'm going to give you to do is to eat more berries, okay? Eat more berries. A study was done on Nigerians, would you believe? On Nigerians. And it showed that those that ate more berries not only prevented dementia, but if you got dementia and you have the early signs, you can reverse up to 90% of the symptoms. That sounds unbelievable, but it is true, and I have seen it. Up to 90% of the symptoms of dementia can be reversed by getting into a lifestyle program. And one of them is having enough berries. Okay, so what about stress and depression? If I may say, we kind of all suffer from it at some stage. You can't go through life these days without being hit by stress, depression, anxiety. And I've only got one thing to give you, so let me tell you this. Because these things can be triggered by certain issues, relationship, financial, health issues, what we could do is to get help early, right? Get help early. Many of us are ashamed or afraid to talk about our problems. What we should do is seek out help early, because these problems, they're like mushrooms, they grow in the dark. You think that you can get rid of them, you think you've avoided them, but they're just building up inside every single day. And that's what leads to sometimes we just break down, because we're unable to deal with the issue. Next slide. Next slide. And at the heart of it must be forgiving and letting go. Forgiving and letting go. I would say forgiveness is at the heart of just about every lifestyle disease. Oh, you can tell people to eat well. You can tell people to exercise and drink all the water they want. But if you've still got that bitterness bubbling up in your heart, it's going to generate disease after disease after disease. Because what is disease? Yes, the slides, please, the slides. What is disease? Keep going. What is disease? It is dis-ease. You know, we're not at ease, and that's what causes disease. Okay. Oh, right. I didn't know I was going to do that. Look, I'm going to give you a little extra tip, if I may. A little extra tip. If you really want to overcome this issue of forgiveness and letting go, you're going to have to learn to embrace pain. Anybody want to embrace pain here? No, we never really want to. But what I'm saying is embrace a little pain so that you can avoid a lot of pain. Okay. I remember when I was a casualty doctor, in the days when you had to wait hours to see a doctor, 8-10 hours in the department. And I remember there was a big guy tattooed all over his face. He was waiting patiently in the department. And when I got his card, it must have been about 2 in the morning, I said, "What can I do for you?" Much bigger than me. And he said, "Doctor, I've got a splinter in my finger. I wonder if you can get rid of it for me." I said, "Yes, I can do that. I'm going to take you to the room next door. We're going to anesthetize your finger, and then we'll remove it for you." He said, "Anesthetize? What do you mean anesthetize?" "Well, I've got to inject your finger a few times so I can remove it without pain." He said, "Well, but I don't like needles." He's full of tattoos. I said, "Well, there's not much else I can do. There's not much else I can do. You're going to have the injection, or there's nothing we can do." So he went away and he said, "Okay, I'm going home." He went home. A couple of days later, he came back and his finger was blown up. Absolutely. It was bleeding, pus coming out of it. It was far too big for us to deal with in the department. He had to go to theatre, he had to stay in hospital a long time. And it kind of demonstrates what's going on in most of us. Oh, I've got an issue. I don't want to deal with it. In fact, don't even go there. Let's not talk about it. And that issue doesn't go away. It just gets worse. And it comes to the point where somebody steps on your toe in church and you explode. Why are you exploding? Not because they stepped on your toe, but because you haven't dealt with the issue inside. It is that issue that leads us to things like stress and anxiety and depression. So what we have to do, keep going forward for me, keep going forward, go forward again. What we have to also do is learn to share our faults. The Bible talks about the fact in James 5:16, confess your sins one to another that you may be healed. Now, God doesn't say confess your sins one to another that you may be forgiven, because I don't need you for me to be forgiven. But it does give us this principle about being healed. We have lots of contradictions inside of us. We may have lots of addictions inside of us. The best way to overcome it is to share it with somebody. Those of you who've been to Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm not looking for names, but those of you who have been there will know that the most powerful tool they have is they get people to stand up and say, "I am an alcoholic." Okay, that releases us from that bondage. Now, what this is telling us is that, you know what? If we had an environment which was conducive to confessing these things, hey, maybe even a church, maybe we would be able to come to church and really receive healing. Sadly, now this is my first time here, I don't know what's going on here, but if you're like every other church, some of our churches are more about judgment. Oh, I don't want to say anything just in case the election comes round and I don't get nominated for this position. Yeah. So it just means then that we can't be a place of healing. Now, I'm not saying that you come to church and confess all your sins before everybody, But we do need to find somebody that we can trust, that we can talk to, who can be accountable to us and we can be accountable to them. Yeah, life is better together. Go forward again, go forward again, go forward again. So I always talk about being healthy in 4 ways to look. If you're going to look back with forgiveness. Don't look back with bitterness. Don't look back with anger. Don't look back with vengeance. Look back with forgiveness. Look forward with hope. If you are alive today, there is hope. Wherever you feel you are, you may be in the darkest dungeon, you feel alone, there is still hope. You will come out of this place. Look down with compassion. In fact, if I wanted to tell you of the quickest way to get out of a rut of depression, it is to be compassionate to somebody else. By being compassionate, it just means giving somebody what you have. Giving somebody what you have and what they need. And finally, look up with gratitude. Wherever you find yourself to be, in whatever circumstance, remember that God is with you. Remember that He's never going to leave you. Remember that He will get you through this valley and put you at the top of a mountain. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to be here. I see somebody with a hand up. You know, am I allowed to take questions? Okay, so we're gonna open it up for questions, actually. In fact, why don't you do the question now? Yes. You do what all the time? Not dealing with it. Okay, so you're doing what pretty much everybody else in this room does, right? You're not alone. Many of us, because it's easier to avoid. It's easier. I'm standing before you. Many times I'm like that. You know, do I really want to have a discussion? No, I'd rather avoid it. But it's embracing that pain in order to avoid the bigger pain. And what I would say, even as a church, we should have little groups that we can be accountable to. So, you know, the big church is often too big. Sometimes we just need little groups where I can tell you things that I can't tell everybody else. Because I need to, and you need to. So that's why this place should be a place of healing. Okay, any other questions?
I'm sorry.
Why can't we not eat cow milk?
Okay, thank you. That's the question everybody was wanting to ask, so thank you. Yeah, well, why can't I have my milkshake? Why can't I have my cheese? Why can't I drink my milk? So, cow's milk was designed for cows. We talked about autoimmune disease earlier. Autoimmune disease, rheumatoid arthritis, Parkinson's, all these diseases. Most of them started when we were children. They didn't expose themselves till later. But most of them started when we were children, when we were given loads of cow's milk. Now, you may not realize this, but most of us cannot digest cow's milk. We do not have the enzymes to digest cow's milk. It may taste nice, but we can't digest. As soon as we've been weaned off of our mother's breast, certain enzymes disappear from our bodies and we can't digest cow's milk, can't digest any milk. So those big proteins get into our bloodstream and they stimulate our immune system to attack us. And that's what starts autoimmune disease. So it started when we were children. There is hope because there's lots you can do later in life. But yeah, cow's milk is designed for cows. Is there anybody here who wants to drink the milk from a woman's breast at the moment? Because there's a woman in Covent Garden, she still makes ice cream from her breast milk. I can see you screwing up your face. You've never tried it. Would you ever want to try it? Well, if it's so disgusting drinking the milk from a human, Why is it okay drinking from another animal? It makes no sense. Do you know, we are the only species. Okay, all right, I've got you going. Okay. Just calm down, calm down. We are the only species that drinks the milk of another animal. And we're the only ones that drink it into adulthood. People say to me all the time, but you need strong bones. Well, how does a gorilla cope? You don't see them drinking loads of milk. They cope perfectly well. I'll take one more question, if you have it. Yes? Go ahead, sir.
You've spoken about trying to avoid sugar. But when we look into our diet, so carbohydrate, pounded yam, eba, amala, rice. Well, apart from beans, I really can't think of any other thing in our diet that's not carbohydrate. How big a threat is this? Because I can't see anyone in this hall who will not eat any of those, at least 2 of those in a day. So how big a threat is this when we talk about sugar?
He's speaking for everyone. He's speaking for everyone. That's good. That's good. That's good. Okay. So, very good question. Sugar, carbohydrate. We're hearing lots of information about low carbohydrate diets and everything. Not all carbohydrates are the same. There are good carbohydrates and there are bad carbohydrates. The good carbohydrates are the whole carbohydrates, the ones that you find whole. So even when you talk about rice, whole grain rice. Anybody eat whole grain rice? Rather than the white rice. Back in, what do you call it? Ofada, that's right, that's right. I mean, when I was last in Lagos, I asked for whole grain rice, and they kind of screwed their noses up at me. Oh, well, that's what the poor people eat. That's what the poor people, it's the white rice, we call it refined. Refined sounds better, but refined is much worse, okay? It's the old ofada, the whole grain stuff, that is good for us. Whole grains are carbohydrate. Whole fruits, whole beans, whole vegetables, that's good carbohydrate. In fact, in the study when they were figuring out what caused diabetes back in 1925, they were doing surveys across the world looking at what they eat. It were the countries that had the highest level of carbohydrates that had the lowest level of diabetes. Japan, for example, because they're not eating biscuits and crisps and sweets. They're eating fruits, vegetables, whole grains. That protects you from diabetes. When I'm treating people with diabetes, I'm still giving them fruit. Oh, but it's sugar. It's whole fruit. It's good for you. Okay, so it's the natural whole grain stuff that's good for us. It's the refined stuff that's what is killing us. Thank you very much. I think we've come to the end. Sorry? Fruit has got loads of sugar, but every little molecule of sugar is surrounded by fiber, it's surrounded by minerals, it's surrounded by vitamins. It's in the exact proportion for your body. Perfectly designed for us. Fantastic. Have we... Okay, yes. Thank you. I was trying to avoid that. Well, I want to get out of here alive, that's why. But no, let me say this. Cassava, right? Cassava. Now, is cassava good for us or not? It's good for us. Cassava is good. Cassava is good. It's a whole fiber, if you're having it like that. But, it's what you add to it that makes the difference. Cassava is very good. In fact, cassava is very good for women. For women, in terms of their menopause, in terms of their regulation of their hormones, very good. But if you're taking it whole, that is fine. It's just what we add to it. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you so much.
A round of applause for Dr. Chidi.